European Union leaders have adopted the tax blacklist, which was released yesterday. 15 countries now face sanctions and restrictions from members of the bloc. The Cayman Islands has escaped that list. But the EU says concerns still remain, and Cayman 27's Reshma Ragoonath is standing by with Financial Services Minister Tara Rivers to discuss the latest developments.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Minister Rivers, thank you for joining us tonight. Let's get straight into it.
Sure.
Your initial reaction to the EU blacklist and Cayman Islands escaping that naughty list?
Well, I think in this process, the European Union has reaffirmed Cayman's commitment to cooperation and constructive dialogue with the EU on this. So certainly not being on the list was not a surprise in that sense, because we worked very, very hard over the course of the last 18 months, really, to engage, to ensure that we lived up to the commitments that we made in December of 2017, which is exactly what we did by the timeline that they specified. And so that was just underscored and reaffirmed by us not showing up on the list that was published yesterday.
Now, the EU added some extra countries, were you surprised by their additions?
Well, again, we were very focused about what we were doing in the Cayman Islands and making sure that as a government, as a country, we lived up to our obligations. So with respect to what happened in the other countries, obviously the conversations took place between bilaterally between the EU and the respective countries. So I really can't comment on what happened in that regard.
Now, do you think that the Cayman Islands escaping this list, as some of the international media has been saying, and Oxfam accusing it of being a whitewashing, do you think that this list or the Cayman Islands not being on this list will silence those detractors?
Well, the thing is, I mean, people that want to take issue with Cayman for whatever reason will continue to take issue with Cayman regardless of what the facts bear out. And I think that's something that we as a country have learned to understand and appreciate, if not accept. And so we have to continue to do what we need to do to make sure that the facts are out there and we do communicate to the people, to the decision makers, so when they make their decisions, they make it based on facts and not based on rhetoric or not based on anybody's particular political agenda that may influence the outcome.
Now, in that EU blacklist, the Commission listed one specific area that they want to pay special attention to, and that is in relation to investment funds. Were you surprised that this was a concern with them? And, what is government doing? Because they say you've committed to work with them to address those concerns.
Well again, I think, given limited time, I'll try to quickly give an overview of how this issue came about. So certainly when we had our initial discussions and the communication with the EU back in 2017, there was no indication that funds was an issue, and so our commitments never included the issue of collective investment funds specifically. We made certain specific commitments, which, as I said, we've been able to demonstrate that we have lived up to. And in the issue of economic substance for relevant entities, the global standard does not include collective investment vehicles having economic substance in its, true sense at the fund level itself. So our legislation and our commitment is in keeping with what is the global standard in this regard, and that's really set by the OECD's Foreign and Harmful Tax Practices, which the EU has accepted with respect to our legislation being acceptable from in that regard. The EU listing process, however, is a bespoke process for the EU member states. So they indicated in June of 2018, so 6 months after the initial commitments were given and initial agreements about doing certain things by the end of December 2018, they then indicated that there was some nebulous concern that they had regarding funds, but it wasn't articulated in a way that was sufficient enough for us to be able to kind of really make any meaningful discussion or dialogue about, well, what exactly is the concern here that you're asking us to, quote unquote, fix. And so it's really as a result of the discussions, the face-to-face discussions in particular that we had back in January, and then I had subsequently in February when I was in Paris last month, that we were able to kind of really drill down and show to the EU that we're prepared to continue to have a dialogue and to discuss what their concerns are, but they need to articulate to us what it is that they really have a concern with. Because it can't be on the pure economic substance sense because it doesn't apply to collective investment vehicles anywhere in the world. So, you know, and I think, you know, the success of those discussions is actually reflected in their own council paper that they published yesterday, where they said in this area they recognize that further work needs to be done to determine exactly what the issue is.
Okay.
And so our commitment is certainly to say we're going to continue to work with them to have the dialogue that they, you know, that's important from their perspective. And certainly as the market leaders in funds,
Okay.
we're able to help inform them in that regard.
Okay, thank you so much, Minister Rivers. I know you had to, you know, get that all into a tight nutshell for us, and we really appreciate your time and coming on tonight to discuss this very important issue.
Thank
Taylor,
you.
back to you.